Hello, and welcome to the Child Care Business Coach podcast. My name is Evelyn Knight. It is the new year, and I am really excited about the new year and all the things. So I just came off of a 2-week break that I gave myself, just 2 weeks off to just kind of recoup and reset my mind. And I do this at the end of every year. The last 2 weeks of the year, I usually give myself off so I can just spend some time in fasting and prayer. And I'm sorry, my microphone is a little off today, isn't it? Just spending some time in some prayer and just really connecting. And some things really stood out to me. I often look at other people's lives, right? And sometimes I get a little jealous. I'm not going to pretend that I'm something I'm not, right? And so God has called me to a pretty big life, and He's called me to do a lot of big things. And a lot of people look at me and I know they admire me and they think all these things. And I hear the comments about who I am and all that I've accomplished and all that I've done and how lucky it must be and how they wish they could be like me. But I'm going to be honest and transparent. Sometimes I look at the ordinary people of the world and I wish I could be like them. I see that they don't have these big catastrophic type of problems, right? They don't have and they don't carry so much on their shoulders. I have so many people who rely on me for their paychecks, for their living, and just for their basic livelihood that sometimes that can feel really scary. And a lot of times that can actually feel very overwhelming to know that all of the children, I have at times 190 families that are relying on me to take care of their children, to make sure that I am providing the highest quality possible for these children. And they're trusting me to hire the right people, to put the right people in management, right? To make sure that their children are getting the very best for those first 5 years of life, which are the most vital to the children. And then I also have all of the employees that work for me and their paychecks that they rely on me for. And then I have my clients all over the world that are listening to me as the beacon of hope for an industry that is in a pretty dark and terrifying time, right? And then I have to be the person who appears to have it all together, right? I have to have the answers because I am the person who brings you answers and who people go to for answers. So then I have to have all the answers. So what happens when I don't? What happens when I personally struggle and when I hit roadblocks? It is a really heavy weight. And many of you have that weight too. It may not be to the extent, but you're managing a lot of people. And I'm sure what I just said resonates with you. The toll that you feel for all the families that are relying on you to keep their children safe, to nurture, to love them, and to educate them. And your staff that's relying on you to have a great place for them to work. This can be pretty heavy. Every time you level up in life, there's more responsibility and it's bigger and it's harder, right? And sometimes I look at my teachers, I look at other people, and I think, oh, their life seems so easy. It seems so simple. And I do get jealous. I do wish for simplicity. I do wish that my problems could be normal problems, right? Like it would be awesome to just face a normal, oh, I don't know how I'm going to pay this $1,000 bill instead of, I don't know how I'm going to come up with this $100,000 that I'm short this month, right? Those type of things are when I just get a little bit jealous of the ordinary. Or the phone calls at 1 a.m. because something is happening that I have to deal with right now. I do. I think to myself, I could probably go get a job at the university and my life would be so much more calm and peaceful. And what I see a lot of times when I look at ordinary people is peace, is peace. But I take these 2 weeks off every year to really analyze things, to analyze my life, to see where God is guiding me, where I'm supposed to go. And one of the things that I really came to see in the last 2 weeks is what I perceive as peace isn't really peace. Right? I think to myself, these people, their life is so easy. They don't have to wake up to the next catastrophe. And yes, they don't face half of what I face, right? I mean, in 1 week, I probably face more than some people will face in their entire life. However, there's a different kind of peace that I have because of the life I chose. I live a life of absolute purpose. I have surrendered my life to where God is leading me, and I change lives. My legacy is going to live far beyond me and my life. And I realize that the peace I have is very different. Yes, I face a lot more obstacles and a lot more big things. And it's hard, you guys. I know I'm the person that everyone comes to for answers, but I struggle too. And there are people that I have to go through to for answers because I am also struggling. And my struggles are just on a totally different level, totally different level. And so it's hard. And sometimes I think I would love these smaller problems again. But I realize that when I get to the end of my life and I look back, there's one thing I am not going to have that people who live an ordinary life will, and that's regret. That is regret. I know I can look back on my life and know that I gave it my all. I pushed and pushed. And let me ask you, are you giving it your all? As a leader, do you feel like you're going to look back on your life and think, I didn't try? This was my dream and I didn't go for it. What if? Do you live with these what ifs in your mind of knowing and feeling like you're called to something, but you're too scared to take action? If you do, and you're living this ordinary life, and you know there's something nagging at you and calling you, but you're too scared, you're going to have regret. And I have to say, I would much rather live in the peace that I have. My life may not be easy. And I have people who know the details in my life. They're just like, oh my gosh, so much comes at you. Yes, because I've chosen to live a really big life. I've chosen to be an entrepreneur. Social media makes entrepreneurship look so glamorous, doesn't it? It makes, I mean, you just scroll on and it'll show these private jets and great vacations and all of the things. Yes, it does. It makes entrepreneurship and being a multi-business owner and all the things look glamorous. But what it doesn't show you is the struggle it takes to get there. Every time you level up in life, think about leveling up. Every single time you level up, it's like climbing a staircase to get to the next floor, right? But there are obstacles in your way as you're climbing that staircase. There are just these obstacles that just keep coming and you have to fight your way past them. You've got to keep going. You've got to keep going. And so many people don't. They get to that first obstacle. They're like, woo, this is too hard. I'm going to stay in safety. So they never achieve what they were born to do. So yes, having a big calling on your life is not easy. It is not an easy life. Being an entrepreneur, yes, we do get the nice beach vacations. We do drive really nice cars. And people look at us and judge, right? And they're like, oh, but they're not willing to do the work to get there. They're not willing to do the work. So the question to ask yourself is, are you willing to do the work? And I also want to say, that I really feel like the entrepreneur part of it is a byproduct, right? That isn't what I'm setting out for. It is a byproduct. Yes, I end up getting all the things and owning businesses and property and all the stuff that I end up with, right? But that is a byproduct of my calling. What I'm really doing is living out why I was put on this earth. And you can too. It's really about stepping into your purpose and not living with regret. Because I can tell you the peace I feel for knowing that I'm living out what I was put on this earth for is greater than any peace I could have by living an ordinary, easy life. And I know nobody's life is easy, but with the struggles that people who really level up face, it's comparing apples to oranges. It really is. It really is. And 95% of the people on this planet do not have the fortitude to do it. But at the end of the day, there is a lot more peace knowing that you are doing what you were put on this earth for. And I can't imagine living any other way. I do know that living an ordinary life, you don't face as much pain. You don't face as much difficulty. The catastrophes you face aren't quite as big. However, you do have to face a life of knowing that you didn't fulfill your purpose. You may never even know what that is. Mark Twain once said that the two greatest days of your life are the day you were born and the day you figured out why you were born. If you don't know why you were born, then I'd say you probably don't have peace and you're just floating through life. And what is the definition of growth and success and life? The definition of life is to grow, to keep on going. And once you stop growing and you settle and you become ordinary, you are just decaying. That's it. So yes, I do look sometimes at people who have an ordinary life, and I do look with jealousy because I go through seasons. 2024 was one heck of a ride for me. It was not an easy year. I faced a lot of huge giants I had to tackle. I'm not ever going to come on here and make it sound like entrepreneurship is super glamorous and easy because it's not. It is not. However, those of us who succeed, we don't quit. We see failures as just a stepping stones. And yeah, I launched things that failed. Absolutely. Because I understand that just because this project failed doesn't mean I failed. It's just a project. And I know that 2025 doesn't have to look like 2024. And I'm going to have a wonderful year. I'm going to kill it this year. And I also know that if I don't, and I did think about it, I will be transparent. I have thought about just being, I could sell my companies and never have to work a day of my life again. I could be fine if I sold everything. But what would that do? Then I would just start to decay. I'm not growing. I'm not moving forward, and I'm not living my purpose. I'm not living why God put me on this earth. So I have a choice. I can either decay and quit and stop the struggle sometimes, or I could choose to move forward and understand that the struggle is just really situations, right? How I define them is what gives them the weight it puts on my life. That's really all it is. So I get to choose. Am I going to live a life of purpose first and foremost? Am I going to strive for entrepreneurship? Or am I going to be ordinary and live an easier life? It's not easy. If you've ever seen the movie Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom, where is it? No, it was The Last Crusade, where he stands at that cliff and he has to get over the cliff. And the instructions he has is just to go, just to walk, right? And he's looking and there's this huge cliff. And in faith, he takes that first step. And it's like this glass bridge catches him. That's what it's like to be an entrepreneur. It is terrifying. It is literally like looking at the Grand Canyon at times and thinking, how am I going to cross this? But you just have to take that step and you have to know you're going to be okay. And yes, sometimes you fall. Sometimes you do. You do. 2024, I fell lots of times last year. Lots. But I also got up many times. I had failures and I had successes. The key is not to allow yourself to stay down. That's the difference. Just because I fall doesn't mean I can't get back up. Just because one of my business ventures fails doesn't mean I have 4 more that are doing great. You can't allow those hard, daunting tasks to stop you. And when you're about to go through that cliff, there is always a way. Sometimes you have to find a creative way to get over that cliff. And it may not be what you think, but there's always a way. The key is not giving up and staying in your purpose. That is truly the key. So yes, in the short term, people who have ordinary lives, their lives look peaceful. They do. But in the long term, they really aren't. In the long term, they're living with regrets and that I wish I could have. I always think about my husband during the last week of his life. We pretty much knew. I mean, he knew he only had about a month to live. And that last week of his life, all he talked about were the things he didn't do. All of the things he acquired didn't matter to him. My husband played life very safe. He was very scared. And my lifestyle really scared him. And actually, I really didn't start my entrepreneurial journey until he died. I mean, I was always a business owner, but we were just small business owners. I did not level up from small business owner to an entrepreneur until after he died because he was so scared all the time. And because of that fear, he stayed small. And when he died, that's what he talked about, was not taking those risks, not jumping. And one of the things his best friend told me after he died, he came to see me about a year later. And within that year, I had probably quadrupled my business. I had opened another business, quadrupled what I was doing, and I was just skyrocketing. And his best friend told me, I knew as soon as Ron was gone, you were going to just take off because of how much he held you back. The fear he had just held you back so much. And it really strikes me, and something I think about a lot, that my husband allowed fear to keep him small. And he didn't take off like he could have. And he lived an ordinary life and not a life of purpose, not a life of trusting God. And so when he died, the last week of his life, he focused on regret. So when I look at other people and I see that they don't deal with the mountains of issues that I do sometimes, I do get jealous. But I remind myself that at the end of my life, I can look and know that I tried, I pushed it. I might have fallen down a lot of times, and people have lost faith in me. Last year was a year where I had a lot of people I never thought would give up on me. And it hurts. It does. But I didn't give up on me. And I kept my sights on God. And that is what's really important, because at the end of my life, the only people who are guaranteed to be there for me are me and God, right? So I know I've got to keep pushing through, and you can too. So if you're done living an ordinary life, join me. At the end of this month, we're going to be doing a seminar. It is free, and there's a couple states that you'll be getting credit hours for. But I would absolutely encourage you to join us for this week-long seminar that we're going to be doing. That will be brought to you by Kangaroo Time, which also brings you this podcast, the wonderful software company. So make sure to join us. We will put a link and some details in the chat so that you can make sure to connect. It is going to be a 5-day training to help you really take charge of your childcare center and to not be afraid of the recession. Things are going to get better, but they're going to get worse before they get better. Before things can get better with our economy, they're going to have to dip a little bit, and then we're going to come out of this. But how do you push through, right? It takes a lot of mental fortitude, and many of us are going to want to quit, but we can't quit. We got to keep going. Those of us who don't quit, we're the ones who stay on top. For those of you who followed me for a long time, you know I've come so close to bankruptcy. I have filed bankruptcy in my life, but I've almost lost my childcare centers. I've had eviction notices on my door. I've had the IRS knocking on my front door with a 6-figure bill. And I fought my way through it. I made it because I didn't give up. And let me tell you, my husband and my mom both sat me down and told me it was time to quit. They had an intervention. And I could have easily quit at that point. I could have easily given up on myself, but I didn't. And I won't. And you can do the same. So make sure that you keep going. And make sure to sign up for our seminar that we're doing. It will help a lot with all these issues and what we're facing and just keep you going. So hopefully this was helpful. Make sure you check out the show notes. And once again, thank you for joining me on the Child Care Business Coach podcast. Everybody have a wonderful new year and keep those dreams going, those goals going, and stay focused in this new year. Bye, everybody.